Today, I am joined by the amazing Jared Wiseman. Jared was actually just up the road in Burleigh and we started talking. We're like, wait, we should do this live. It'll be so easy. And we've spent the last hour trying to make the camera and the lights talk to each other. So if we look a bit awkward, we are. Yep. But let's get going on the Barrels and Business podcast. So as always, I'm your host, Jade Green, and my job here on the Barrels and Business show is to bring you an hour or so of entertainment and, most importantly, tangible tips on how you can increase your business and your barrels. Although I'm not the right person to give that advice, but we've got a coach coming to you real soon that's going to help with that and give you a bit of entertainment. So we want this to be a fun listening experience. We've promised to be raw, candid,
Absolutely.
All holds barred. We're just going deep. It doesn't matter.
Sure.
So Jared here has just told me that he's never had a real job. He kind of worked in a cafe once. That wasn't really his thing. So from about 13, 14, he decided that work thing's just not for me. I'm going to be an entrepreneur because I want freedom. And I live in Tasmania and the surf like only comes now and then and I need to be able to go and chase it. So he just went, fuck this work thing. I'm going to do my own thing. So Jared is also a loving and dedicated father of 3 now.
Yeah. 4 if you count my fur baby.
You have a fur baby as well?
Yeah, Black Lab Evie. She's my first child, so
she's
a little bit neglected these days, but you know, she gets plenty of love still.
She gets plenty of love?
Yeah.
I hear you're a pretty awesome husband as well. So,
yeah, well, I'll say that. Yeah.
That's what, actually, it was him that told me.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's true.
We should get your wife in.
I'm sure she'll back it up.
You reckon she'll back it up?
Perhaps, yeah.
Perhaps.
Depends what day.
So we're gonna dive into a bit of the relationship stuff because what's great is Jared and I are actually in the same coaching program, and all good coaches have a coach, right? To push you, to learn from. And one of the key things I think, well, for me specifically being in the group coaching program is being able to have connections and you being the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And we were like, didn't know what each other did really. And then we started talking about this and went, wow, the value alignment. So tell us a little bit about what you do. Who are you as a coach and why did you go, there's alignment there?
Yeah, well, for me, I mean, you touched on it earlier, but I guess life's all about, you know, living your best life, if you like, and what is it that you really want. And so something that I've aspired to from a very young age was to live life on my terms, I guess. And, you know, here we are, 30-degree day by the beach, having a chat. This is work. But I've designed
it's a shitty
it.
office too.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I've designed it and I've created this. And so for me, I guess what inspires me these days is to literally help other people do the same thing. Life's way too short to, you know, trade away years, decades doing something that you hate. You know, we see it all too often. So, you know, it's something I'm really passionate about, and business for me is a passion, and it's also a vehicle to help people, you know, to be able to live that life, whether it be go surfing, whether it be, you know, picking up your child from school, or, you know, soccer dad, as I will be this afternoon with my under 6 boys. That's to me what it's all about.
Awesome. Okay, so when we're talking about you as a 12, 13-year-old going, nah, that job thing's not going to be my reality. Talk us through that journey. Bring the surfing that you're telling me into it, because Tasmania and surfing to me I lived in Tasmania for a really short period of time. It was really fucking cold.
Yeah, I mean, summer's beautiful down there, but yeah, I mean, I remember, and I've shared this story with a few people, and one of my best mates, Ben, him and we used to, I can distinctly remember getting yelled at by a particular teacher. I think we were in maths, and all we were talking about was like coming up with business ideas or business concepts, or like, how can we create something so we never have to work? And by work, we mean, I guess at that age, it was do something that you hate, because that's effectively what, you know, a lot of formal education grooms people for, is to be great employees and to trade your time for money. And, you know,
that is the whole school system, isn't it? Let's just indoctrinate you to respond to a bell, do as you're told, regurgitate the shit that we want, only think when we want you to think. Sorry, I've gone on a rant about school.
Yeah, yeah. And to be clear, I've got a lot of teacher friends, but you know, and
I'm speaking at a graduation on Wednesday night. Wonderful.
But yeah, it was just something from a very early age that I saw my father. You know, Dad, if you're watching, saw my father just despised, you know, his Sundays leading into, you know, a new week of work, and I guess I had a lot of struggles with that thing, and I remember at a younger age crying to my mum saying, I don't want to grow up. I don't want to grow up, because I could see what the average adult live life and what their life was like. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. And for me, school, you know, I made a lot of great friends and a lot of great memories and, you know, great stories and all that. But I did not like the concept of school. I didn't like the concept of, you know, you put your hand up when you want to go to the toilet. You were told when you will eat, and I don't think it was something against authority or anything like that. It was just, I guess for me it was almost like that was a taster for what the rest of your life could look like if you just go down that path. And so that's where, for me, I was always inspired to do that. And we were just talking before, it's like, if we use surfing as the example, you know, where I'm from in Devonport in Tasmania, it's like, say, the middle of winter, for instance, or any time really, you don't often get that good a surf there. Now, if we're talking west coast of Tasmania, some of the best surf in the planet. East coast can get very good as well, but that's, you know, a 3-hour drive from where we were. So when the surf was on, you had to be ready.
Where's Shipstones in comparison?
So that's down south.
The other side.
Yeah, so that's down the bottom.
Yep.
West coast. Hang on, what way? That's north. But anyway, west coast. East
Don't
coast.
look at that, because I've got a compass over here and it's all sorts of fucked up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
it's on the wrong wall.
North up there. So yeah, it's like if you wanted, say, to surf, then, you know, you needed flexibility to be able to go when you wanted, and you know, say in winter, the daylight wasn't that long. So again, I just wanted a life where if the surf was on and I wanted to go surfing, then that's what I was going to do. And for me, sport was a big part of that. Training, I've been an athlete majority of my life, and that was the same thing. Is like, I wanted to create a life around the things that you're passionate about. And so, yeah, that was kind of where it started, I guess, at a very young age, in terms of probably not specifically knowing exactly what I wanted or how I wanted, but I certainly knew what I didn't want.
Yeah.
And yeah, I guess I'm proud to say I've never had a job in my life other than a small little cafe that probably wasn't overly enjoyable, but you know, I learned some stuff as well.
So then talk me through finishing high school. How did you start your first business? How old were you?
So I actually went to university to study business, and at that point, again, I still didn't know exactly what I wanted, but I had a lot of desire to learn business, and I didn't really know much more at that point. But ironically, it didn't teach me a thing about business, right? It was a great 3.5 years. I failed financial management, which meant I had to go a bit longer. So Dad, being a financial planner his whole life, is very proud of that.
The moment that I knew that I wasn't made for doing my MBA was when the dean sat me at his desk and asked me to do an algebra test. Yep.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I don't know if I'm in the right place for MBA business. So I'm going to opt out and do an entrepreneur studies instead.
I mean, I certainly don't regret it, in the sense that it did teach me a lot about being resourceful. And if you need certain information, then you could go and find it. And again, I made some lifelong friends there. And it's all part of the learning journey that you can't learn business from a textbook. You know, it's something that I think you have to get your hands dirty. And so I went to uni, got that, ticked that off. And at that time, my brother, who was actually living up here in Queensland, he was doing this personal training thing, which was quite a new thing, if you like, in Australian terms. There was a few around, but it certainly wasn't like what it was today. And he moved back to Tasmania, and we'd encourage him to come back and say, look, no one's doing it. Why don't you give that a crack down here? And so he started doing that. I finished uni and thought, well, I'm really passionate about health. At that point, it was probably more about fitness and strength and how that equaled health for me at that point. why not put these business skills into something that I'm passionate about? And so that's where we started. And my brother had, as far as building a business, and I still use a lot of these principles today, is it was all about just getting people results. And those people then told other people. And so we built up to just the two of us. I was early 20s and he's 3 years older than me. And we had a waiting list of, it got up to 117 people, a waiting list to get into us as personal trainers in a small city of 25,000 people. And so obviously we've got that demand, we booked out. That was kind of the line in the sand moment to go, do we keep this nice controlled little thing here where it's just us and whatnot, or do we grow and scale it and bring on employees? And obviously that's another journey again. So we decided to go down that path, and we were in business together for 12 years. My brother still runs that business.
Really?
Currently, yeah. So.
And you didn't kill each other?
No, and it's something we both, well, I speak for him, but I know I'm certainly really proud the fact that family and business is usually a no-go thing. And I probably, to be honest, don't recommend it. But we had a really close relationship and literally a handful of probably disagreements over that time. And, I think our personalities work really well together in that, we're not too alpha males or anything like that. We would always communicate and work things out really well. And even when it sort of got to the end, when I knew my time was up in the business, that we handled it really, really well. And we're still super close today, even though, we don't probably talk as often as we should and whatnot. But it's, some really good memories and a ton of learning over that time, more so of probably what not to do and what, the mistakes and the learning and all of that stuff. But it's, I was only saying to a client this morning, it's like those, the toughest clients you've got or the toughest situations you go through in business, they are literally gold. They're your best lessons that you ever get, as hard as it is to see. If you have that mindset, right? If you have the mindset to go, what's the magic in this, and then apply that, it's the best thing that can ever happen to you.
So let's dive into that. It was really funny because I said to you, I was out with the surf coach this morning, and all the kids that are in the sort of alternate pathway, it's not really the right way, different style of schooling. So they do surf coaching in the morning, and they go and do job placement during the week and everything. But the whole idea is these kids, they love their surfing, and one of them wants to be sponsored. Yep. He really wants to be sponsored, but he will not fucking go back into the beach and get his feedback from the coach. Like, he does not want to be told when he's done something wrong. He only wants the positive recognition. And to the point that it was a shock when he paddled in today when the coach called him in, and everyone went, what's going on? Like, you've got to be willing to look at the perceived failures or just what didn't work.
Yeah.
And if you're not willing to look at what didn't work and dive into it and go, okay, what's the lesson in this for me? What can I take out of it? Even if it's hurt, even like sometimes when it's really hurting and it's really absolutely shit, like maybe a relationship breakdown or something. If you can't have the balls to put your ego aside and sit in the discomfort of either receiving the feedback or really analyzing where were you at cause, like what could you have done differently, or hindsight's 2020, what would you do to change, then it is a fail. But if not, it really is that opportunity, and that's where the best growth comes from. And have you heard of Kensho and Satori?
No.
Growth learnings? So Kensho is like growth through pain.
Yeah.
And Satori is more a prolonged, and so you can have these sudden awakenings, and sometimes it's those most dark or hurtful or what seems like business ending, relationship ending events, that if you can sit in that pain and look at it and go, what is the lesson? Where is the blessing? Like, this all happened for a reason. What, sort through all the shit, where is it?
Yeah.
Then that's when you can have that escalated growth.
Yeah. And I mean, you can apply that to anything. It's like, so I guess as a personal trainer, you what I loved about that is that it was the first step, I suppose, to working with someone one-on-one, where you're literally digging deep into their soul. You're finding out everything about them. I knew a lot of deep, dark secrets about different people through the community and whatnot. And obviously you would never say anything to anyone about it, but
because really part of your job as a personal trainer is a therapist, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Same as a hairdresser.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, my mum was a hairdresser and she said exactly the same thing. It's that people are looking to open up, and it was crazy how quickly people actually would. This sort of, oh, hi, how you going? And all of a sudden, boom, they'd tell you everything and you're like, whoa, okay.
Yeah.
But I love that stuff, and it's what's kind of pushed me to do what I do today, because I was just intrigued with what is it that breaks people down or where you get the result. If we use weight loss as an example, if there's not a billion different resources of how to lose weight, it's everywhere. But why is 2/3 of the population overweight or obese?
Yeah.
And that's what intrigued me so much with, why am I telling these people this stuff and they're not doing it? And going back to our original point here was like the key difference that I noticed with people that got results versus the people that didn't. And there's a great book on this. It was extreme ownership.
Yeah.
It was just owning your shit. And like, I would have people come in that'd sit down and there'd be 150 kilos and tell me they're eating perfectly.
Yeah.
And the thing was, they legitimately believed that.
Yeah.
Because they conditioned themselves to believe that story.
Have you heard of Mel Robbins? Coach?
Yeah. She's the 10-second.
Yeah, 5 seconds, I think.
5 seconds. 5 seconds. Yeah, sorry. I've doubled it.
She's got a Audible exclusive book called I think it's called Kick-Ass Coaching with Mel, and she is fucking brutal. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And she has an example on there of a person that's not losing weight, says they want to lose weight, and she like really delves in and she uncovers the real reason why she doesn't want to lose weight. She loves the attention.
Yep.
Husband runs around, she's like overweight. And so I'm too tired, I'm too sore. And she said, so it doesn't serve you to lose weight because then no one's going to be running around.
Yeah. That's like Tony Robbins would talk about. It's the need for significance. And you see that a lot. This is controversial, guys, but you see it with mental illness, and I'm not saying that people don't have mental illness and it's not a real thing. Of course it is. But I know a lot of people that gain a lot of significance out of, I'm so depressed, I'm so anxious. And it's something we all have to constantly be, pardon the pun, shining the light on ourselves with listening to your stories and listening to your stuff. Going back to the extreme ownership was, that was, something I can distinctly remember certain clients that when they owned it, when they didn't make excuses, when they just said, yes, this is what I did, this is what I didn't do, they got the results.
Yeah.
And whenever I've done that for myself and really step into that place, it just feels so damn good. We're talking about business and feedback, and when you don't do things well, if a client complains or whatever it is, like you just have to listen and go, okay, what is it that they're really saying? Sometimes it can be a cry for help.
Yeah.
But there's always gold in there. There's always stuff that you go, okay, what can I do? Don't get me wrong. There's always pains in the ass that maybe it's not your thing. So it's not 100% all the time, but there's usually always some sort of gold in it.
Yeah. Well, I always say with looking at where you're at cause. So rather than the blame of fault, like sometimes, shit happens, my computer breaks or but you go, okay, well, what could I have done to mitigate that risk? Where was I at cause? Like, should I have checked that the updates are being done, or should I have checked recalls, or what is it that safeguards and it allows you to go back and go, okay, well, next operating system that I do, I'm going to upgrade for this. Where was I at cause? What could I have affected? What do I keep, delete, and start doing to move forward? Sometimes you go, okay, virus hit. I know we weren't going to talk about this. Borders closed. But I was talking about the client, and we go, okay, yeah, that's going to shut down business. There's nothing you can do about it right now. But to make ourselves safeguarded for the future, or if something else happened again, or to have an extra revenue stream, what do we need to do? Right, we need to get the traditionally one-on-one or face-to-face business, and we need to get it online, and this is our opportunity to do so. And this could be the biggest gift, because staying through and then having that as well as on the other side, rather than totally
and I guess the other extension of that is how much do you focus on the problem versus the solution? And so there's a number of people that will go, oh my God, what did I do? what did I do wrong? Oh my God, there's this. That's great.
Not that blame.
Yeah, that's right. You've got to identify that, but then it's like, what's the actual solution? And that took me quite a while in business to do that. I would naturally, ego would say, oh, that's bullshit. Like that, no, that's not how it works. They're just complaining. They're doing this, they're doing that. And this goes for staff as well, and different things. You would naturally always want to just put up your guard and point the blame at someone else.
Yeah.
But like, as I said, it's so liberating when you just take responsibility.
Yeah. Well, it's taking the power back, isn't it? It's
totally. And it just does the complete opposite. And again, we weren't going to talk about it, but it was funny because I was reading the book Extreme Ownership at the same time when there was a lot of stuff going on in politics here in Australia. And I certainly don't want to bring up politics, but it was like, I'm watching these people. I'm like, not one of them is taking any responsibility for anything. It's always, oh no, it's them. It's not, it's them, you know, and I'm teaching my 3-year-old this stuff. So it's crazy how many full-grown adults just don't understand that concept of just own your stuff. It's massive. Yeah.
On that, being a dad, what's some tips for, say, parents with teaching kids, and what age do you think you start introducing the concept of extreme ownership and looking at these things?
Yeah, I mean, as soon as possible. It's like fatherhood for me is just the best thing ever. Like it's so damn good, and it's also so damn hard. Yeah, I mean, so my eldest child, Murphy, he was, I think it was 2. And I remember hearing people talk about the terrible 2s. And I'm like, that's a story. That's a belief. That's bullshit. I'm not going to buy into
that's not my
that
reality.
thing. Yeah. And I actually heard a friend say, I call it the terrific 2s. And I'm like, yeah, that's awesome. I'm going to do that too. And then boom, it was like, I was like, whoa, what has just happened? And you talk about leadership. Like, I've never had a bigger challenge in my life than as a dad. Now, I'm consciously aware. I'm someone who's constantly thinking of what can I do better? How could I have handled that better? But I had this 2-year-old that I would say something like, stop yelling. And he'd say, yeah, he'd be yelling at me. And I'm like, hang on, who am I to tell this kid to stop yelling when I'm yelling?
Yeah.
And so, as I said, I've never had a more powerful kind of mirror in front of you where you're like, everything. And knowing what I know, they talk about how much your unconscious mind is built in that first 6 years. And like, man, I go to bed quite often where I'm like, oh, I shouldn't have said that, because you see it. And then you do a lot of self-reflection as well, in terms of your own stuff and your own crap in your own mind. And I find it in some weird kind of ways a little bit cleansing. You know, it's like you've had a restart where it's like, I've got this beautiful, perfect child that's born, that all of a sudden I can create their life. And you know, I was only last night, I was redoing up, I do this often, I do it with clients, like my ideal day or my ideal week, sorry. And exactly how it looks and whatnot. And then the next thing we've found, my 6-year-old has done his ideal day, and he's like,
oh my gosh,
go swimming with daddy, you know,
oh.
like, which was 3:00 Sunday from memory.
Oh, bless.
So yeah, it's.
But I think that's a really important one. So this is actually, I said I'm speaking at the graduation tomorrow night, Wednesday night, and I'm talking about habits, behaviors, routines, and I teach ideal week planning and things as well, slightly different with the energies. But imagine you had that as a kid, as a tool, and that you were given some sort of responsibility and ownership over how your day. Okay, cool. You got to get your chores done. You got to do your homework. Where would you like to do them? When would you like to do them? And like, by them taking the ownership on it, how more likely they're going to do it, but they're empowered rather than dictated.
Yeah. And there's another, I'll drop lots of books in this chat, but
we love books here.
Another great book is, I think it's called The Conscious Parent. And that was another.
Is that Dr. Shefali?
Yes, perhaps.
Yeah.
And that one was another great kind of empowerment, I suppose, or ownership-based book, where it just talked about your child's behavior. What is triggering you is a reflection on you. And I remember it was something at the time of reading it, and it was I was getting frustrated at night quite often, which, you know, they talk about the witching hour, and yes, it is real. But I remember just being agitated and frustrated because the kids were yelling and they were doing this and doing this. But once again, when I read that book, it made me realize that, well, what can I do about this? And I just remember, because I love what I do in my job and all that. And, you know, you've got your phones. I remember I was half still in work mode, I was half in parent mode, and I was doing a shit job at both of them.
Yeah.
And so that book was, really good at actually, again, shining the mirror back on yourself to go, okay, what can I do? So I think leadership and walking the talk is still the best parenting that you can ever do. It's the same, monkey see, monkey do. And it's crazy. And you literally see your child's behavior play out in front of you, and you're like, oh my God, like I've kind of created that. Back to my dog. It was really interesting. She got separation anxiety from me. And this is something that I had with my mum, right? So you talk about passing stuff down. I was a mummy's boy. A lot of people would say I still am. And really struggled with separation with my mum. And this grew up into teens even, where I hated leaving home. I hated staying at other people's houses. I just wanted to be safe and at home. And when I had first got a dog, like I literally created the same thing with my dog. The cool thing was she still probably has it a little bit, but my kids don't. Yeah. So I learned through my dog what not to do with my kids. And So
have you ever heard that you can actually pass on your biggest fears through lineage to your children before they're even born?
I would 100% believe it. Yeah.
And there's scrolling, but there's a whole study on like kids that have been separated at birth from their family that have the same like absolute death fear of heights, or with no reason, and then that's traced back, and it's like because that was a real trigger in the parent when the creation was happening, that this got passed on. And
well, we my wife and I are having some challenges at the minute with our eldest Murphy. So let's just say both Beck and I have been athletes our whole life, and those that know me know I'm quite competitive. And my wife is the same. She's probably can tone it down a little bit more than I do, but we're having real problems with him at the minute. He's just an animal. He'll go onto the soccer ground and like, if the other team scores a goal, he just flips the lid. Like he's just, and I'm confident in saying this, that I don't feel like there's anything we have done as parents from a behavior point of view to pass that on, but there's something there that you cannot explain, unconscious energy, whatever it is that, you know. And I remember, and I remember doing the same things. Like I was even probably a bit better than him. He's like next level, but it's crazy. And this is what I love about being a parent, other than you just love them to death, but just the learning that you go through is pretty epic.
And I see, I'm not a parent as such myself, but I had my two sisters from when they were about, I think it was like 2.5, 4.5 through. So high school with little blonde girls, great fun. Yeah. And what I can see, a lot of hindsight of what could have done better. I was only 6 years older than 6 and 9 years older. But if I look now, even with how we work with their kids and the reflections, how you can apply parenting techniques to team members and staff and vice versa. Yeah. Because really it is the energy, and it is still the human interaction. And if we look at kids as just mini humans, right? It's just this reincarnate. They've only been here for a little time in this body. Yeah. But if you can level with them and treat them on that level, and it really is, I think, more of how you show up and the difference. We did a little test with my boyfriend's 2 kids the other day. He's like, they just never get up, go to school on time. They're just a nightmare. I'm like, well, with that attitude, that's like, he's like, they can't hear, but if that's what you're putting out and that's the expectation, then that's what's going to happen. And if you just come at it with a different energy and you set your intention for the morning and you walk out into the common area of the house, radiating from that energy, and you come down and level with them and you explain to them like why we need it and you're coming and just come from that energy.
It's amazing.
He said to have him since that day forward.
Wow.
Every morning, up, dressed, ready.
Yeah.
Calm. Like, because you set the intent.
And for a number of people, probably the people that, listen to your podcast or whatnot, they probably get it. But for the average person, sometimes they hear that and go, oh, it's a bit woo-woo, this, but it's science. It's proven that energy transfers, and it's, I feel like it's a new science that over the next 50, 100 years is going to blow people's mind once they actually start, sinking their teeth into it. But yeah, they feed off it. And from a really young age, probably in the womb, of course, but once they come out, it's incredible when there's stress or when there's different things going on, the things that show up with them. I mean, my wife, with our young daughter, so she's 3 months old, she was in labor, and my 3-year-old come in and was being like a pain in the ass in the middle of the night, screaming, and he was demanding a massage or something. And she literally stopped, her labor stopped because of the stress and whatnot, and the contractions went right out. And it's so you can't tell me. Yeah. And I mean, I could talk all day about the, what happens to the female body through pregnancy and whatnot. Like, some of the stuff is just, it's crazy, and interesting learning experience for a male.
Let's touch on that for a second, because and this is where we connected as well, in terms of, I always say with the business side of things, everyone's like, why are you talking about relationships now? Like, the energy crosses over and permeates everything. So that's why I say I'm a 5-dimensional coach. We work on all areas, because you can't escape it.
No.
There's an energy hangover. So let's just talk through the husband-wife relationship. You talk about like learning to lean into your masculinity, and just give a bit of insight into that.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's probably about, I talked about, being a mummy's boy, and it was probably only a couple of years ago, and this is where the business side of things became really interesting for me. And I was reading another book at the time called No More Mr. Nice Guy. And it talked a lot about how we've built a society of nice guys. And again, some of this may sound controversial to some people. There's sort of, people get easily triggered when you talk about the masculine and feminine. Masculine is quite often perceived as like a negative thing. It's like, they talk about toxic masculinity and all this stuff these days. And when I was reading the book, I had this moment where I remember distinctly exactly where I was walking. I remember exact place. I was back in Tassie at the beach, which is where I come up with a lot of magic at the beach. And I remember just literally my life flashing before my eyes going, oh my God, I'm a nice guy. And the nice guy is about just being a pleaser, right? And not wanting to upset people. And I think about the amount of times in my business where I knew it was the right decision to make a change, for instance, whether it be, say, if you're in a fitness business, might be changing the timetable or whatever. Oh, no, that's not going to suit that person. Oh, they might get upset. And so the amount of times that I wouldn't make decisions because I was so worried about hurting other people.
Yeah.
And I'd live this life of not always, but majority, I was a pleaser. And I thought, that has to stop. And so...
Well, it doesn't allow you to step into your true genius. Like,
no.
if you're fighting those instincts and those gut responses, then, and just doing it to please, obviously it's going to make you feel yucky and probably manifest in another way as well. But you're not allowing yourself to step into that genius, trust that intuition to move where you need to go. Yeah.
And it was, I guess, and to be fair, like, I've worked with a lot of males, and the male of today, again, I'm talking generally here, there's obviously extremes at both ends, but like, they're indecisive. Again, they want to please. There's a lot of stuff around this, and I realized I was doing it. I was still probably, I'd say, a little bit ahead of the pack, if you like, in terms of where I was, but nowhere near where I should be. And
I'm going to say something super controversial. Don't know why I'm going to do this. It's coming out. here it goes.
Hold yourself.
I'm like, oh fuck, am I really doing this? But I've done a few studies with this, not me doing studies, but being involved in, but that people pleasing and that aspect has come a lot from, and the demasculating in terms of not the true taking control or being able to make decisions or be sharp on it. They track back to having a lot of single mums.
Yeah.
Not having a dad figure or male figure or role model to model.
Yeah, and that's exactly what this book talks about. And it's I guess if I say this and you do get triggered listening to it, then it's probably time to do some internal work yourself. Yeah. But what they talk about, I think it was around the Industrial Revolution. Don't know if you've ever talked about that in your podcast, but the Industrial Revolution was, so young boys would go out with their dads and they'd hunt and they'd do masculine things. It's something I've never done that in my life, but they would do that and they'd spend times with other fathers and other boys and learn masculinity.
Yeah.
What happened? The Industrial Revolution came along. The dads would piss off for 40 plus hours a week, and so then they would be brought up by their mums. And women have done an amazing job and done their best job, but what's tended to happen is the father figure's gone, so that masculinity's gone. And even if you look today, primary school teachers, daycare, learn to swim, everywhere, like young boys don't have male role models.
Yeah.
And so what tended to happen is the mums would bring their boys up to be nice boys.
Yeah.
And so again, I'm not coming across that this is a thing against mums raising their boys, but it's more the lack of male presence.
Well, this is where we've got this is the key thing we need to recognize. We need both for the harmony of the world and for growth of well-rounded personalities.
Yeah.
You need both inputs.
Yeah.
They are equal, and we need to recognize the differences in it. And that is where the gift is. Like when I say I stopped playing football because I kept stepping into my masculinity. I grew up, my dad was a single dad. He's an ex-merchant Navy sailor and an ex-mercenary.
Yeah.
Like, and then, and then I went and I'd play football, and I was in a male-dominated industry, and I lived in that masculine, because I didn't have any feminine to even model. And to me, that was like weak, and it's like people be like, well, you do that, girl. Like they told me I couldn't have my job at the first recruitment company I worked for. The main reason I couldn't have the job was I was a girl. That was their reasoning after 10 interviews. And I'm like, fuck you, I'm going to run this place. Within 2 years, I ran the place. But it's like we need to go. Everyone, boy needs male and female inputs. Girl needs male and female inputs. Businesses need masculine and feminine inputs. And we need to embrace rather than it's like swing one way, swing the other way. It's like, okay, if you really looked at it holistically, if you look at the child, if you look at your business as a child, how do you bring them in? And we're actually talking on my call this morning about the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Do you have a balance? So if you've got 5 people and you've got 6, do you have a balance, or is it completely skewed? Yeah. And in those people, just because they're wearing a meat suit that's feminine doesn't mean they're bringing the feminine energy. Yeah, totally. So how do you balance that? Yeah, I mean, as the saying goes, like proximity is power. And so I guess for me, like when I learned this stuff, when I started to, I guess, be consciously aware of what even is being masculine. And, again, most people don't really understand what that is. Like no. A lot of people have negative associations. Being masculine is, macho and this sort of stuff. And for me, it's an energy. And for me, I know when I'm at my absolute best, I'm stepping into it. Another book, Think and Grow Rich, they talk about, I think there's one chapter about how a lot of the wealthiest people at that time of writing that book, the most successful business people, actually had high sex drive. Yeah. And the way I sort of perceive that, I guess, is it's the same thing. It's probably highly masculine men that know how to use that same energy and put it to good use. And like, I know for a fact when I'm at my best, I do that. When I waver and I'm, going into Beck, for instance, go, what do you think? Should I use this or should I, I'm second guessing myself or needing, whatever the word is,
approval from other people or whatnot.
You're looking for external validation.
Exactly right.
Looking for mummy's
pat
on the back, baby.
Yeah, that's right. And I know that's when I go weak.
And so I think that's something important to recognize that there is nothing wrong with going and asking for the opinion and for someone else's advice. It's understanding what your motivator was for that.
Yeah.
So when you're genuinely like, okay, I've got this problem, here's my ideas of the solution, but let me talk this through. This is what I think. What do you think? Or can I, like, you know better than me?
Yeah.
But when it's going in seeking approval, seeking external validation, or the ego is wanting you to get the stroke of, yes, you're right, dear.
Yes.
Then.
And couple that with my love language is words of affirmation, right? So I like to be told, oh, good job, Jared. You know, which is another conversation altogether. But
well, I actually apply, and we're rolling this out with one of my clients. I get all of the team and staff to do love languages.
Yeah.
So really understanding, because if you're going to give recognition, understanding how they are, and also boundaries for when you're allowed to touch people at work.
Yeah.
I'm a very touchy person, and I've had staff in the past that really don't touch, freak the fuck out.
Probably stroking their leg was a bit too far.
Too far. Patting him on the head.
Yeah.
I used to actually threaten him as if he didn't. I said, if you don't get your stuff done that you need to get done by the end of the day, this finger is going to touch you right there. And he'd like, I'm like, it's coming. A few years later, he actually jumped into an elevator. I hadn't seen him for 7 years, and ran over and hugged me. And I'm like,
who's this?
What happened to you? He's like, I don't know. But really being understand, like, is it physically a pat on the back when someone does a good job? Is how they're going to hear and feel that appreciation? Is it the words of affirmation, or like a simple thing like, I bought you a coffee because you did a great job? Like the difference in them receiving and feeling how genuine that is, whether it's you're doing it genuine or not. Like,
yeah, and I think
massive.
I think you touched on it before when people sort of go, oh, like if it's business, why we talk about relationships? It's like, well, business is relationships. You've got staff, you've got clients, you know, you've got your network of people, whatever it is. It's like understanding that, and that was something that, you know, we lost a lot of staff members over the years. And look, that's what happens in business. But if I look back on it, I've no doubt there's times where it probably was, ultimately when clients leave a lot of times, they don't feel loved.
Yeah.
When staff leave, they don't feel loved. And so it's understanding, well, what actually makes them feel loved. We were used to, my brother and I just go, oh, well, maybe we'll just pay them more.
Yeah.
You know, that was kind of like, yeah, then they'll be happy, because that's something probably we would have enjoyed.
Yeah.
But projecting your own.
Told you that.
Yeah, that's right. Projecting your own.
Because of more money. Like where
deep down,
they don't want to tell you, I left because you didn't love me and you don't give me any attention, and now I sound like a needy whiny bitch. So it was because there was more money.
Yeah. So one other thing you mentioned before that I probably didn't answer, you talked about my wife, and I think it's and this is coming from a masculine male perspective, is understanding the feminine. And I also, when I say use my wife, I trust you know what I mean here, but I know when I'm not being my best, because I can sense that through her energy. And now the feminine will show it in weird kind of crazy ways that the masculine doesn't quite understand. You're like, well, why is she doing that? Why is she behaving that way? Why is she withdrawing? Why is she not talking, or whatever it is? And relating it back to the extreme ownership again, if I sort of look back and go, there's always something. You know, I can pretend that like, oh, she's just in a mood or whatever it is, but there's usually always something where I go, oh, and this is the superpower of the feminine, being able to use that, is that, and my wife has very fair but really high expectations of me, and I love that, because it's like, I don't want to be a pathetic male that just coasts through life. You know, I want someone to hold me to a high standard. Like I said, she's not holding me to a standard that's unrealistic or anything, but it's like, I don't want to be, you know, a fat piece of shit that sits on the couch all day and plays video games and, you know, doesn't do anything for himself. So understanding both those is like, it's been a game changer for me. And like I've said a few times now, it's kind of liberating when you do start to understand. I don't think I'll ever quite fully work out the feminine, don't get me wrong, but yeah.
But yeah, it's taking the time to to actually learn a little bit and looking at where you're at course. Like then you can, like I take extreme ownership over my marriage, like where I could have done better in the marriage that I was in. Would it have maybe led to a different outcome? Who knows? But if I knew love languages in advance and knew that his primary love language was quality time and gifts, and mine is physical touch and words of affirmation, and we're on both opposite ends of the spectrum, and I'm like running a startup, training 38 hours a week for football and helping launch the football league, I'm probably not around a lot. And then when I am home, it's not really quality because I'm a bit broken. So then he starts being mean to me and uses his words, and I am words of affirmation. And then I'm like, well, you're an arsehole and going back to play more football. You want me to play another game this week? Sure. Right.
and that's where, like, if you look at that, the behavior that most adults carry on with that sort of stuff, we're little kids. We're just being little kids that have sort of grown up into these adult bodies. And I've just read the children's version that was gifted to me from some friends with our new child. And I've just read that. And it's just so funny that you see adult behavior like that, but it really is just little kids that aren't conscious or haven't learned or whatever it is. And
like I was totally unconscious with that. It's like, you be mean to me and say horrible things, I'm going outside more. Oh wait, the outside more is what caused you to do the mean things. Damn it. So understanding that and doing it with kids is, I think, hugely important as early. How early do they say you can recognize it with?
Well, I know my 6-year-old, like 100% is quality time. And it's like, when you read it, and it's just like when they come and say, oh, Daddy, can you come and do this? And don't get me wrong, it's annoying as shit sometimes where you're just like, you know, you're in the middle of something, you're doing it. But then when you actually listen and break it down, just say, what he's saying is, Daddy, can you show me love? You know, I
need connection.
That's right. And so he's
I need recognition. He's
saying gifts may be in there for him, but I'm not sure if he's sort of manipulating that a little bit. He's a very smart kid. And I feel like our 3-year-old, I feel like he could be a words of affirmation at this point, but it's what they say in the book is test it out for a week, really go hard with each one and just sort of see what they respond to. But he expresses his love, like he'll say things in that way. But at the end of the day, you want to give them all of them. But I think probably from 2 or 3, you would start to see some sort of signs. And it's something with the staff. If you usually they keep their verbally or their behavior is communicating like how they like to be received. So you can start picking up cues. Are they a touchy person? Are they giving positive feedback to other people? Are they bringing people like what are they doing? But I think straight out do the tests with any of the team members and explain why, because they'll all be like, why do we need the love languages? What? That's super weird. Like, what's going on there? Sorry, I'm getting rid of notifications off my screen because I'm like OCD. I can't deal with it. I'm the same. So that's just good.
So let's just switch gears into your habits and behaviors and routines, because we mentioned that, and about you told me you're living your dream life right now, and it's because you made a conscious decision to live that dream life. But you don't just go, I'm being conscious and I decide, and then the world manifests and it just lands in your lap. Like, a little bit, but
I guess it's the first step is knowing what you want. You don't need to know how. You got to forget the how. And I only did this in a training the other day. It's like, know what you want, forget the how. Because what most people's mind does is go, oh, well, I want this. Oh, yeah, but I can't because, I don't know how to get enough clients here. And I'll just settle for, this here.
It's like if you know the what by when, the who and the how can show up. And often the how is the who.
Exactly. And so when I first did this exercise, for me, it was part of the catalyst of actually me moving from Tasmania to the Gold Coast was I would write the dream starts my morning. And when I was sort of sending you some information the other day, it actually gave me goosebumps because I was like, shit, I literally am living my dream life right now. Yes, I've got a long way to go in my business. Yes, I want to, expand and grow in all areas. But, I remember I would write the start of my day is like, well, I would get up and I will go to the beach. It'll be like 25 degrees. I'll meditate, I'll go for a swim, I'll, maybe do some exercise, I'll do all this. It's like exactly what I did this morning. But when I was living in Tassie, there was just this thing. It was like, it ain't ever going to be 25 degrees at 6 a.m. in the morning. And it was funny, but this thing sort of lingered, and I'm like, that's what I want. I want warmth. And so, I guess identifying that is a starting point.
Yeah, I think a lot of the time with people that I've worked with that don't seem to get where they want to go is they don't have the clarity around the end goal.
Yeah.
It's all means goals. Like, I want a Ferrari. I want this. They're not thinking about what's the actual end feeling and what's the end result to get there. And then it's hinging on either specific people or tangible objects rather than the actual emotion and the feeling.
Yeah.
And when you can paint that picture clear, and you've put it out to the universe of this what's going to deliver, then the blinkers come off on how that could manifest for you, how that could turn into reality, things that you wouldn't have seen if you were so rigid on not vanity metrics, but items or
shiny objects.
And getting that clarity. And I found with a group of my clients recently, especially due to the situation that's been going on in the world, they felt bad about dreaming, or they lost their ability to dream bigger.
Yeah.
And look at that, really sit into that future vision. And if you strip away the things that are bought with money and go to the lifestyle, because everything you just said then requires fuck all money.
Oh, exactly. And I was only thinking that as you're saying, it's like, for me, I'd always wanted to be a dad. I always wanted to have kids, but I love sport. Like, I love exercise. I love being healthy. And so it was always about just doing what I want. Now, don't get me wrong, I love travel and I love all those things. I'm not a massive car person or anything like that, but it's for me, it's lifestyle. And there's just, like I said, identifying it to start with. And what you'll probably realize, I know when I do this with clients, is they're actually a lot closer to it than what you realize.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take that much, in terms of, like, for me, we're going to the beach. I went to the beach at 5 a.m. this morning. It was the most beautiful morning. It was 26 degrees.
Just in a swimsuit, ready.
I read a book. I went for a swim. I did some meditation. Then I went to the gym, sort of scratched that itch. Came home. The kids had just woken up. Mess around with them for a little bit. Take them to school. Bang, then I jump into work of something that I freaking love.
What do you say to the people that say, I don't have time for that? I've got kids, I don't have time for that.
Well, you're full of shit. So what I would say is, well, maybe not now, but we've all got time. That's a story.
Yeah.
But what are you going to do about it? Anyone can do what I've done.
We've all got the same hours in the day as Beyonce.
Yeah, that's right. Well, there literally is 168 hours in the week. So it's what you do in there is it's your choice.
Well, listen, I was literally, I tease it out because this is what I was talking about on my coaching call this morning, was like, I don't have time to read a book. Do you drive your vehicle anywhere? Do you have a shower? Do you do anything around the house? Because you don't need to physically read the book. I was a big dork listening to Zig Ziglar, Automobile University 20 years ago. And if you want to find the time to learn something, or you want to find the time to do something, it's just about reallocating the time.
Oh, and it's priorities.
Getting up earlier.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying, I'm sure your wife's extremely sleep deprived.
No, she's actually...
It's not.
Well, both our boys, just as a side note, they were awful sleepers. So we got smashed with our first two children, and third time lucky with Cleo. So she slept 14 hours last night from 5. This is a PB, but 5 till 5 p.m. till 7 a.m. And she was up once at about 5. Beck gave her a quick feed or whatever. She's like epic. But anyway, yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
What did you do? Some learnings from the first two that you applied?
I don't know.
Meditating on this.
Well, we could talk about energy, because I said to Beck the whole way through, I said, no, she's going to be a sleeper. She's going to be a sleeper. She's going to be a sleeper. It's like, it's third time lucky. It's going to happen. Whether I cause that or not, I don't know. Let's just go with it. Yeah.
But so I do get that there is parents out there severely sleep deprived, and that is a thing. but my beautiful sister's just about to launch her business, and she's got 2 very full-on little wildlings. They're amazing, super alert. They don't do TV. They don't do sugar. They don't do and she does all conscious play. So she's like onto it. Yeah. All means she's on all the time, and she's still trying to find time. It's like, okay, well, what do you need to do to work with your partner to allocate who's going to do night jobs or day jobs, or what are you willing? It's price of admission. What are you willing to sacrifice to gain it? How much do you want it? Like, you don't have time to go to the beach. If you're not having to actually be out feeding the babies, then get up an hour earlier. Yeah. Like, if that's the lifestyle that you want, and if you want to own the day and set yourself up and have some me time, then get up an hour earlier. That's why I started 5 a.m. club. I
think with parents is there's no doubt there's a window where, especially with newborns, where you do lose control of it. I'm all for take ownership and take responsibility, but there's no doubt there is that period where you just got to surrender a little bit. In saying that, it's always the case, and this goes whether you got a newborn or you're, a single 22-year-old or whatever, identify what you want and, what's most important. Most people do what's urgent. Yeah. And a lot of times there's stuff that's not important. And they live in reaction, as opposed to going, well, if I want to be healthy, for instance, what's the things I need to do? Well, I need to start going for a walk. Do that first. Yeah. Like schedule and prioritize that first, not, oh, well, I've got to do this, I've got to do this. As soon as you identify something you want, your brain, it's called reticular activating system, will literally, it will start filtering out stuff that's not relevant, filter stuff that's in, and you'll find a way to make it happen and be resourceful. If you say, I can't, it's too hard, I want, your brain literally shuts off.
With that attitude it is.
Yeah.
And I think it's also about combining, if it's oh, I don't have time to go for a walk. Well, why is that? I've got to make all these calls. Okay. You got an iPhone, got a camera, off you go.
Yeah.
Got a pair of headphones.
Yeah.
Really looking at, okay, how can I hack this? How can I combine things? What can I do to, for me, best place for me to speak to my team and my assistant is when I'm driving places, because then she's got my undivided attention.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. That's the time. We know that's when we're going to schedule the meetings. And then I'm not losing an hour, 2 hours out of my day, or sometimes 3 hours out of a week, where I'm sitting with her going through show notes for podcasts or whatever, that I can be multitasking it.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not.
And of course you don't use your phone while you're driving.
No. No. Well, she can talk to me.
Yeah.
She talks to me back.
What I was going to say with that is, from a parent's perspective as well, what I used to do when our boys were really young, when they were, up 4 or 5 times a night for their first 12 months and beyond, I would get up for the early shift. It might be 5 a.m. or something, get them in the pram, and I would do my personal development while I'm doing it. Now, again, I know that's not rocket science, but that's a perfect example of what you talk about, is just find
But
ways.
You'd be surprised that, I don't want to seem horrible, but people are just being conditioned, and they got fucking lazy, and they haven't been taught how to think or how to hack.
Yeah.
Right? And they think they've just got to go for a walk, or they're scrolling on Instagram or Facebook rather than.
Well, we had a guy on our mastermind the other day he was walking while he was on the call.
Yeah.
So
oh, that was epic.
Yeah, it was so cool.
So you can, if you train your brain to look for other ways to, I'm not big on, I don't think you should multitask. You should do deep work.
It makes you dumb.
But it makes you dumb, and it makes you slow down. But you can shower and listen to something.
Yes.
And you can walk on the beach and listen to something.
Yeah.
Or there is different things that you can do that is okay to combine.
Yeah, of course. Absolutely.
Is there any particular books that you've read on habits, or how did you create yours?
Yeah. So I lost my virginity, if you like, on the Compound Effect by Darren Hardy.
Oh, I don't know that one.
Yeah,
I know him as an author, but I don't know.
Yeah. So that book is just epic. It was so good. And then the next one I read was The Slight Edge.
Oh, yes.
And I must admit, when I read that, I'm like, hang on, who's copied who here? Because they were very similar, but a different.
We were just having a talk about that before. There's no original thought.
No, but a different way of doing it. And then the most recent one is Atomic Habits is another one that's come out. And they're all the same thing. And it's all really about just doing success doesn't come overnight. Yeah, it's just about what's that one habit, and this is what they talk about in the compound effect. What's the one habit that if you repeat it daily, day after day, week after week, month, year, 5 years, 10 years, that's going to result in, gigantic success. I give the example of, like, say, for instance, if it was the chocolate cake comes out, and if we live together and you say yes and I say no, in that moment, I get jack shit. I miss out. I don't get the taste of the warm chocolate and, that gratification, the instant gratification that you get. You get all that, right? So you kind of win in that moment. Does it affect your health in any way negatively, that one-off? No. Like, all right, you might have a slight spike in glucose or whatever, but it's like nothing. So you get all the gratification. I get nothing. I miss out. Now, let's say the same thing happens the next night. The chocolate comes out and you say yes. I say no. By the way, I love chocolate. I'm not saying you should never eat chocolate. But if that habit, continues day after day, week after week, you look after maybe even 6 months, there's probably not going to be a lot of results difference between you or I. But if you add it over a year, 2 years, 5 years, all of a sudden you can start to see how different things could look potentially for you. You could either, and that, look, I'm kind of using one small example. Yeah. Obviously, there probably need to be more to it, but you can sort of see how blood sugars would increase. You would put on weight. You would feel more tired. You'd go and exercise less, and it just, the compound goes on. Versus me, who's saying no, I've built the muscle of saying no, and I win. And it becomes so much easier. Yes. It's no different to compound interest. Yeah. It's exactly the same principle. It's just tiny, small habits. It's so funny because literally this is what my coaching call was about this morning. It was unscripted. It ended up being that. Yeah. And it was about, we call it habit stacking. Yeah. And it's like, and owning the day. So if you start the morning with a habit and a routine, like the psychology. Have you read Own the Day by Aubrey Marcus? No, I don't think I have. I'm definitely familiar with it. My podcast listeners will hear about this all the time. Anyway, but the psychology of, if you wake up in the morning and you've hit snooze 3 times and then you're running late and then you're shooting all over yourself because you're like, I should have got up earlier and I should have done the dishes before I went to bed because now I can't make breakfast and there's shit everywhere and I should have washed my clothes and I should have done this and you're an idiot and you're lazy and the negative self-chatter in your head's already got you down. How the hell are you going to perform for your day? Whereas if you go, you know what, I don't hit the snooze alarm because there's a whole thing about the circadian rhythms and, what happens when you drop into sleep for 10 minutes and like the causing of the brain fog. We'll leave that one for later. Yes. But you've already told yourself you're a winner. You kind of, let's be honest, whenever we get out of bed straight away without hitting the snooze, you do give yourself that little bit of a, you're the man. Well, I think, I don't know where I heard this, but they were talking about what's the number one thing that you should do to start your day, to have a productive day. I can't remember if it was more a military-based thing. How there's a lot of books and stuff from SAS or whatever they're called. And they said, make your bed. Yep. And if you think about it, it's like making your bed really doesn't do jack shit. It's hard for me because my wife's always still in it. But I have been known to make my side while she's still in it. But if you think about what that is, it's not the actual making of the bed. It's the habit of getting up and winning and going, boom, I've done that. I literally was talking about that this morning. So I say, my thing is, I get up at 5, and I've got to go back to it because I did fall off the rails for a little bit and it really impacted me. But up at 5, straight up, make the bed. Before I even come out to check the surf or anything, make the bed. And for me, a bit OCD as well, but it tells me it's telling my psychology I'm a neat, organized person who cares about my environment. Yeah. And I don't know about you, but when I go in at night, that's my sanctuary. And if it looks like a shit fight, and then I'm reminded that I'm lazy, I should have done this, that's chaos, where's my pillowcase? Then now I'm going to bed with negative talk about how it was. And even, again, it's all energy. It's like if you visually see something that's a mess, you feel chaotic and you feel messy. I couldn't agree more. And I mean, I'm for those close to me know that I'm really OCD. Like I love neat and tidy. That notification's killing you too, because it's killing me. Yep. I didn't. but yeah, I'd say the same. And I teach a lot of people actually about being minimalist. And by minimalist, I think the concept from a business perspective is that if you've got shit laying around everywhere in your office, for instance, it's like you think about your brain has to process everything that's around you. And so
too much of info.
yeah, if you've got bills here and something else here and stuff sprayed everywhere, so you cannot possibly be as efficient. And so I mean, yeah, maybe there is some psychological issues with me with this one, but I remember at a point where if my room was really, really messy, it would affect my sleep. Where I'll be like, again, because there's a trigger, like, oh, I've got to clean that up.
Yeah.
Now, for people that probably aren't OCD, they go, yeah, okay, you got a problem. I won't know.
Yeah. Yeah, but I actually tested this on staff. So I had awesome Scottish guy that came from Glasgow. We called him Ouija. So Ouija's desk had just turned into an absolute disaster during the week. And so we used to have an appointment booked on Fridays at 3 p.m. where I'd turn up with a beer at his desk and I'd get my arm and I'd push all the shit onto the floor and I'd grab all the Post-it notes and then we'd decide what went back.
Yeah.
So that he could start the week clear. Because otherwise you'd see him freaking out and fussing around his desk, can't find this, can't find that. And like his brain jumping, like he used to sit in front of me. So literally his brain jumping going, oh, I need to do that. Oh, I need to do that. Oh, I need to do that. And the anxiety is rising because he can see all these things that he should do, need to do. What's the priority? Where should it go? Oh crap, where did I write that phone number down?
And a lot of people, I don't know if you've heard this, but I hear a lot of people that are like that will say, oh, no, it's okay. Oh, I know where everything is. It's like organized chaos, but this is science.
It's there.
Yeah.
You know where it is. It's there somewhere.
it's understanding there's a thing called decision fatigue, and it's probably aligned with that somewhere, that if you've got crap everywhere, you know, it's your brain's constantly processing what do I do now? What do I do next? And I know for myself, if I reach threshold in a day, like I'm hopeless. I'm gone. I'm all the creativity's gone, and I'm done. So yeah. I don't even know how we got onto being neat and tidy. Starting the day, I think.
Habits. Yeah, habits. For me, I literally can't, if I'm feeling overwhelmed and I just have to clear the desk, I have to clean stuff, I need to have everything neat so that it's like, okay, I've opened my mind, I've cleared the slate, and this is I can focus on this now. Because otherwise it is too many inputs coming in. Yeah. And that's the psychology of, making the bed. Like, yes, it's the one of I owned it, I'm a winner, you're telling yourself you're not lazy, you're proactive. It takes like, how long does it take to make your bed? Yeah. Like really, I've got, I think 9 pillows on my bed. And I still have that thing made in less than 30 seconds. That's such a female thing as a side note. I think I did a post about this once. So what is it with chicks and pillows? I don't know. I really don't know. Yeah. But they're pretty and they look lovely and I feel like I've done a good job. Yeah. But then it's like, okay, well, what's the next thing? Is it put on the kettle, or is it, for me, I don't drink enough water. So my next thing has to be, I don't do anything else. So I drink my water, because otherwise the water won't get drunk for the day. So you're not allowed to have, and then the consequence, not allowed to have the coffee. Add that to your habit of the morning, do you? Yeah, that's in my habit in the morning. So I come out of the room and I leave my crystal glass on the edge of the counter now. So I see it and I drink it. Yeah. Then I kind of forget for the rest of the day, but that's the next habits. Make it visible. Yeah. So thinking about, and this is what I got my guys to do today, it's like, okay, what's going to be the routine for this week? How are you going to own the day so that you can own the week? What's going to set you up to fill your cup? What are you going to trade? So to speak. Yeah. Yeah. So to speak, to set yourself up to have that winning psychology ready to kill it and give yourself the energy. And if that goes, okay, I'm going to get up at 5 a.m., then I have to be in bed at 10. I'm terrible because if I even if I went to bed at 4, I get up at 5. Don't recommend that. See, I start with sleep. Like for me, it's like when it comes to planning an ideal day, like I start with sleep. Sleep's, I think, it's up there with one of the most underrated parts of health, if you like. Yeah. Where, you know, it's like, I'll sleep when I'm dead kind of mindset. And it's something that I've never ever been someone that's stayed up till 1 working. I just physically can't do it, and I don't want to do it. But I start with my sleep and say, what is it that I need? I know I need about 7.5 hours usually, and I wake up and I'm supercharged. But if I'm not,
especially with kids, especially with running a business. If you're that 5% off, it destroys you. So for me, it's like, how many hours sleep do I want? When do I want to get up, and work back from that?
Yeah,
and,
reverse engineer from that.
Yeah. Now, if you're used to going to bed at midnight and you go, okay, I'm going to start tonight and I'm going to go to bed at 8:30, that ain't going to work, maybe 15, 30-minute increments or something. But,
yeah. Actually, I had a client in Europe, and we've traveled the world a lot together. So we're used to being on different time zones, and she had a really big problem she'd gone back during COVID to Europe and the time zones, and she couldn't get herself out of like 2 a.m.s, and it was affecting everything else. And so, we implemented half an hour every day, going backwards, and then tacking that onto the wake up cycle.
Yeah.
And so it shifted, and within the 6 weeks, we got her in bed at 11 and up at 6.
Yeah.
And just firing on all cylinders. Just the difference.
It's again, it's one of these things nature provides us. It's just that natural rest it's like plugging your phone into the charger, and it just makes us such a difference. And trust me, and for anyone who's a parent who's been through that sleep deprivation phase, I mean, like I said, with both our first kids, it's like 3-4 times a night for a year, and you just feel like absolute rubbish. So now it's just like, it's everything to me, because I had it taken away. As they say, you don't know what you got till it's gone.
Till it's gone.
Yeah.
Okay, so in terms of habits for killing it at work, so we talk about morning routines and things like that. What other things do you recommend business owners build as either habit, behavior, or routine to set them up for peak performance in business? Yeah,
well, I guess it depends on what business you're in. Obviously, there's probably going to be a broad range of listeners, so there's probably no point in me getting too specific. But what I would say is it's the same thing as health, relationships, whatever it is. You pick your 3 to 5 things that are the most important. So, and by important, like we talk about important and urgent, most people I think get delusional with what is actually important. Just like, if you're in the game of making sales, well, what are the things you need to do to make sales, and make those your habits, prioritize those first. Because it's very easy to go, I'm working on my business cards, I'm working on my logo, I'm working on my website. And you would have heard them all. I hear them all. Hell, I've been guilty of doing them myself.
Yeah. That I still don't have a website.
Yeah, no, I do. It's really logos. Bad, so don't go to it. But and so I think it's knowing what that is for you and your business, and like literally looking the tiger in the eye and going, okay, what's my key revenue generating activity that I need to do? In terms of habits, like there's a great saying which would have come from one of those books, is make good habits easy, make bad habits hard.
Yeah.
And so whatever that habit is, like, make it easy. For me, one of the things I've struggled with of late is just writing content for social media. It's just something, for some reason, I was in an amazing groove. Now it's sort of like a bit wishy-washy. So it's knowing when to do it as well is important, like the time and scheduling it. For me, it's morning. Like if I go, I'm 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm going to do my creative content. It's like, it's going to be a bad post. What I'd say is know the key 3. It might only be 2 or 3 things, I don't know, but know those key things and prioritize those first.
I think understanding where the resistance is when you go to do it. Like for me, writing copy for social media, writing content, I say public writing used to be my biggest fear due to a programming I'd been given. And I'm dyslexic, so then I get fucking frustrated that I can't spell a word, and then I have to reach for my phone and ask Siri to spell it, and that just annoys me. And then she doesn't understand what I'm saying. And then I'm like, but I had this belief that doing stuff on social media was not real work, and that it was taking the piss, and so I had this real block of trying to do it in work time. So then I try and do it outside of work time, which would then eat into other time, which was also destructive and late and not the best work. And then when I sat into it and went, when do I actually pump out my best stuff? Either in the morning while I'm checking, like doing the sunrise and I'm inspired, I'll just listen to something, and if I just punch it out and then give it to my copy unicorn to make it do the things,
Yeah.
put commas where they live.
Yeah.
And the other time that was epic for me was like on a like on a Friday, on a Saturday or Sunday afternoon with a beer just before sunset.
Yeah.
And just before I was going to go for a skate. And then all of a sudden I'd be like, oh yeah, because I'm just taking my time and this is like cool. And so understanding what is your excuse for your procrastination, or what is your underlying belief that may be either preventing it from happening. So that goes with so many things, right? Don't want to do your sales calls, recognizing where's the resistance point and how can you overcome that so that you can push forward. So then you look at your habit stack and you go, well, if I know I'm going to have to make sales calls, I'm going to listen to someone that pumps me up. Let me get me some Gary Vee in the morning.
Yeah. And I think what a lot of people do as well, and again, we've all been guilty of this sort of stuff, is, and I actually associate this a little bit with my OCD. Sometimes it's like once I get everything tidied up, or I get everything clean, or once I get all these jobs out of the way, then I'll get to the important thing.
Yeah.
But guess what? That shit doesn't go. It's always there because you get rid of it, and especially if you've got kids.
I was so freaked out when you said you were coming in 10 minutes. I'm like, oh my God, my house is a mess. It's very messy.
Was I 12, by the way? I said 12. I think 12, yeah.
Gave myself 2
minutes. Yeah, that stuff never goes away. And so that's why you have to do those first things first. And the weird kind of thing is when you do that and when you live in that space where you are, I would say, living proactively rather than reactively, that other stuff just, it goes away, and it's the noise of it quietens down, and you learn to sort of just go, who cares? It's not important.
Or just know that that's, like, for me, I know that that's a thing for me, and I can't operate as sharp if things are a mess. So I know the dishes have to be done before I go to bed.
Yeah.
Or it's got to be part of my morning routine, because I can't have, like, the desk needs to be sorted out before I go to bed. The stuff needs to be done, because otherwise that is going to compound and knock on. So take the time, recognize it, and work it into your schedule.
Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful.
I think 6:30 p.m. is my clean up tidy time.
Yeah. The desk is sorted. But that can be a bit of the wind down routines. Do you do anything about your work wind downs or anything?
Yeah.
I need help.
Okay. So it's really interesting because you obviously work in your home, and I would guess you'd have a lot of listeners that would do the same thing.
Home on my van.
And so a previous coach I had years ago, he talked to me about transition time. Mm-hmm. So if you think of metaphorically that you're wearing the different hats, right? I've got my business hat on. Mm-hmm. And if you're working at home, like for me, it's not like I can just walk out of the door of my office and go, oh, here I am, I'm a present husband, and how's your day, honey? Like, tell me exactly, it doesn't work like that. Like, you walk out and your brain's still, still on thing. And then you're, oh, hang on, I need to do this. So you jump back in.
Just there.
That's right. And so I certainly don't do this overly well. So this is kind of do as I say, not as I do right at this minute. But having transition time, whether it's just go, right, for me as an athlete, this is what really was helpful. Is it would be 4:30 in the afternoon, for instance. I'm surf lifesaver, I've been in my whole life. It would be a lot of times I'd hit the ocean, and it's the best mental cleanse where you've gone from work, you get out in the ocean, you come back, and you just feel so much calmer. Now you don't need to go out and this is probably a very Aussie saying, but flog your guts for an hour or so to have that. It could be simple as go for a 10-minute walk. Have a shower. I don't know, something that's that, and leave your work in your work. They talk a lot about that with sleeping as well. People who do stuff in their bedroom other than sleep and the other thing that most people do in their bedroom, right? They're the only things you should do. But if you're taking work in there, it affects you. And so, I don't know if that helps, but
that energy does radiate through. I had something else I was going to ask you about on that. Give me 2 seconds. Oh, have you heard of the book called The Third Space?
Third Space, no.
I haven't read it yet.
It's another one I'll write down.
Yeah, well, it's a similar thing. It's like, what's that space that you go to that's not work, not home, that allows you to transition? And I think I might have talked about this on a podcast before. But super important for parents that are bringing up kids, whether it's the male or the female, but whoever's the primary caregiver, if their primary caregiving is also at home, sometimes they don't even have a second something to take their brain to. They might be just parent all the time.
Yeah.
that's going to get exhausting and fatiguing and boring and like draining.
Well, if you're say in my space where I talk to a lot of clients and there's a lot of emotion that goes into it, right? And they're telling you all this stuff. And if you just sort of like finish a big day of that and then you waltz into the home and the kids are running at you and your wife wants to tell you, get her, I think it's 14,000 words or whatever it is that you know, they want to tell you.
It hasn't been used all day.
That's right. Or you just want like, I just want cave time, right? I just want to get away from it. And so,
and they're like, but I've been in my cave all day and I haven't got to talk to an adult and I need to get all these words out of help.
Yeah. So it's managing that is, I mean, that's part of life's challenges and whatnot, but again, understanding it and understanding how it works. And like I said, that transition time, and for me, nothing is better than exercise.
Yeah.
You know, getting out, breathing, just letting your brain unwind. Like I always have found exercise as one of the best meditations, if you like, for myself. And some of my best ideas come from going for a run or something like that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, beautiful. Okay, I'm conscious that we're a little over time. That's okay. What would be one key thing that you'd like to leave the listeners with today?
Oh, it's one key thing. Well, hopefully
you can have three.
Hopefully I've given you a few key things. I guess probably the theme overall that we've talked about is just believing that you can live the life that you want. You know, it's very possible, but you need to see it first. You need to know that, and nothing beats old school pen and paper, down on a beach, somewhere quiet, just get away and just start writing. And I guess just see where that takes you. And, you know, think about, I think you said it, Jade, was think about the feelings that you want. And, you know, for myself, I'd be really pissed if I died at the age I am right now. But I know for a fact if I did that, everyone that I love knows that they're loved by me. I know that I'm loved by all those people. I've lived a frigging great life. I'm doing everything I want. That to me is the most important thing to have. It's like, okay, don't get me wrong, nothing wrong with making $1 million a year. There's nothing wrong with traveling first class or having your own plane or whatever it is. But I think it's just knowing that I think there's an exercise they do in 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It's imagine they do this visualization process and it turns out that you're at your own funeral.
Yeah.
You know, what do you want the people to say about you? What accomplishments? Yeah. What legacy? What do you want have done? And it's like, life's too short to just go, oh yeah, I'll get to that in a while.
Yeah.
Like, no, do it now. So I guess, yeah, as I said, it's a big passion of mine is we only get one chance at life on earth as we know it.
I say you only get one go in this meat suit on this timeline. So
yeah. So don't as they say in with the Millers and with the tattoo, no regrets, no regrets, and just go out there and make it happen.
I'd say with that, you said you read Atomic Habits.
Yeah.
So what I love in that is going, okay, to be the person that has these visions, that actually has this lifestyle, who do I have to become? What's the habits, behaviors, and routines? What's the character traits I have to exude and embody to actually have that? So if you want to be the person that does that, what do you need to do now to start working towards it? Like, an athlete doesn't become an athlete without doing the discipline and doing their habits every day to get where that is. They don't just go, oh yeah, I decided I want to do that. And
it's known as an overnight sensation. You hear it. Music's a bit weird and different these days with the commercialization of it, but you know, amazing musicians like I remember hearing stories of Eric Clapton or Paul McCartney or some of these guys that, like, you know, they're in their shed playing their guitar for probably 10 hours a day for you know, decades, you know, and then all of a sudden these overnight hit. No, it's like they've done their time. So I'm not saying, by the way, that you need to be doing 10 hours a day of stuff like that, but it's just the small little things.
Yeah. And it's that dedication, because they'll have a habit of, okay, I play this amount of times per day. I put in the work.
Yeah.
If that's the person I'm going to be. Yeah. And if I want to be that person, I need to start now. And how do I start embodying that to show up?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, where can people consume more of you? Not on your website.
Don't go to my website. No,
It's
probably
ugly.
probably just go my Instagram, Jared_Wiseman, which is Jared, or hit me up on Facebook, is under the same thing. And yeah, we can connect there.
We'll put all the links in the show notes. And obviously any of the profiles that you're on will be tagged. So just pop by, say hi. It'd be really super cool if you could tell Jared what was the number one thing that you took out and decided to implement from the show. Actually, I'd love that. I'd love it if people would actually start commenting. What is it that you took? What was your trigger point? Would it be an even funner one?
Yeah.
Like, where did you get really pissed off at us?
yeah. That's it. What did we say to
And what are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for literally coming by.
No worries, Joe. It's been fun.
I feel like we could have talked for ages, and maybe we have to do a second show and
this is part one. Let's just say that.
Part one, because there's many topics we want to dive in. We didn't even really talk about you as an athlete. So
we didn't talk about the ocean much either.
We didn't talk about the ocean at all. We just showed it.
Yeah.
So what I'll do is I'll get some of your bio. We'll put it into the notes as well so that people can get a bit of the juice that we didn't cover today.
Awesome.
Cool. Thanks. Bye all. Have a wonderful day. Hey there, barrel chasing business owners. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the show. What I would love for you to do, if you feel like you got any value or entertainment out of this episode at all, is to leave us a 5-star review and comment below so that we can share the message and impact as many business owners like you as possible. Thanks.